honestly, I believe confidence is freedom. When you can find
Mhm.
your inner confidence, you are free to do so many things. You're free to set boundaries. You're free to make that phone call. You're free to loving yourself because when you're confident, that means you also are starting to like who you are.
Our guest today is the author of the #1 best-selling book, Seen and Unheard, a professional life coach, NLP, EFT, and the founder of the new app called ConfidentU. She motivates and builds confidence in women over 40 who have struggled with being seen and heard in their own lives as she turns their I can't back into their I can, turning her own life around from being broke and broken at age 57. She has made it her mission to turn her mess into her message. Welcome to the show, the Confidence Igniter, Patricia Love.
Hey, how are you?
What's going on, Patricia? I know we've been so excited to reconnect and do this. This is 2.0. If anybody wants to, at the end of listening to this or watching this on YouTube, there's a whole nother interview I did with Patricia when her book was brand new, just came out. So if you want more, that's a little bit more information on the book. But today we're going to dive a little bit deeper on ConfidentU. Are you ready to rock and roll?
I'm ready to rock and roll as usual. And yes, it's awesome to be back. Thank you for bringing me back on.
Yeah, it's been amazing. Like I have over 100 now, I think 145 amazing guests, and a handful I've chosen to come back on. So that's definitely a tip of the cap, if you will. Gratitude for your message, your messaging. I see what you're doing on social media. I get your email blasts. Everything is high class. It's done really well. You're a professional and you're someone who's not just out there talking. You're actually living in your greatness, and you're living in a very real story that you lived through and turned it around 180 to say, hey, the things I've gone through, the struggles and pains I've felt, I'm now going to turn this into my superpower and help others. And it's a real, I could feel it. You could see it with your clients. And it's something I appreciate. You're not just out there talking, you're actually doing, you've done the self-work and you can tell.
Well, so we're always a work in progress, so I've worked on myself a lot, but I continually work on myself every day because, after a while, actually, it's really enjoyable to learn and grow every single day. And that's what I strive for, is just growth every single day. No matter how old you get, you need to continually grow.
Yeah, and the other thing, guys, she's super humble. Like, see, she took it, but she also knows having humility and being humble is super important. But I know you're not doing it just to put it on a face or wear the mask for the interview. And I just saw your recent interview with Carl Buccellato, a mutual friend of ours now, and you talked about the emotional masks there. And I know that that's a topic I'd like to touch on today. Is people wearing masks they may not know that they're wearing, and needing to remove those so they can actually be genuine. And authenticity, I know, is the number one. People say, like, what's the key to monetizing your podcast or building your audience or connecting with people? And I honestly have come to the point now where the thing that comes to mind first is authenticity, right?
Yeah.
Nobody wants this like fake facade of, oh, on this podcast they're doing this or that, or you come on a show and you're all polished. We're talking about very real things that have happened in your life. And that's why I wanted you back on the show today. And
well, and here's just to chat about that for a second. People know when you're not being authentic. There's an energy. There's, we may think because we're wearing that mask that we're this and we're doing all the right things and, doing the filters and driving the fast cars or whatever you might be doing. But in reality, people can feel authenticity. They're going to know. And, for so long, I didn't really get that. I was thinking, if I just wore this mask and hide my emotions and do what I need to do, then I can keep stepping forward. But in reality, that catches up with you pretty, when you realize at nighttime you're not being you, and that you realize that, wow, how come things aren't working out for me? Why am I broke? Why am I miserable? Why do I keep having relationships that don't work? Someplace it has to stem from someplace, and so many of us who are wearing the mask or who wore a mask, nobody wants to admit that it could be you. That maybe you might be the thing that you might need to change. People always want to play the victim. And so they always want to say, well, like, if it wasn't for so-and-so or, my ex or this and that, but you play a part in things. But it's one of the hardest things to do is to acknowledge that maybe I'm not being my real self. And why am I not being that person? So you have to really
like,
do
what
the
work do we
acknowledgement.
need to do internally to allow ourselves to, you have to realize it first and evaluate, hey, I am doing something here. I'm part of the equation.
Yeah.
If it's with the relationship or if it's just yourself. And the thing is, it takes a lot of energy to do that, to wear the mask, to put the,
Yeah.
the persona on. And there's different levels of it. There could just
Yes.
be, just being, oh, I'm fine, everything's cool, and it's a real low level, like everything's fine, to like coming on and trying to, maybe you're doing a presentation in front of 1,000 people and you just know internally that there's a lot broken. And
Yeah.
it's hard. And at this on the flip though, I do feel like that's part of an imposter syndrome plays a little bit into that too, because as a early stage entrepreneur or someone who may do a keynote speech on a specific topic, but they're looked at in this new lens now because they just did a TED talk,
Yes.
but they know that there's other parts of their life that still need a lot of work. It could be this imbalance of like, a lot of people are slapping hands, telling me things are looking great, but internally, I'm. So you're wearing a mask, but you don't even want to wear it. So there's a lot to this. Anyone who's listening right now, kind of, if you're feeling the anxiety I have in my stomach, it's because you've been thinking about this too, of being mindful and taking action on it. So the first thing we can do is address it, and that is why you're here today. And I really appreciate you doing that. I want to just say one thing too before we get really deeper into that, is making sure people know where they can find you. Is on Instagram and Facebook. I know those are kind of your two main spots that you spend a lot of time on and a lot of time with your community. And that's at Coach Patricia Love. So easy, guys. At Coach Patricia Love on Instagram, Facebook. Those are clickable in the show notes, so you don't have to worry about typing it in. Even though it is easy, it's exactly like you think, at Coach Patricia Love, and your website, patricialove.com, right? And so that's just kind of the hub to find everything. And the app we're talking about, ConfidentU, it's the letter U.
Yes.
And that's on Apple, and it's also in the Google Store, Google Play. So you'll be able to easily find that on Android and Apple. Absolutely. So with that being said, let's continue that conversation about, so once you kind of identified that you may be wearing a mask or you want to be more mindful of not doing that, is there something that like internal work that you recommend? Is it meditating? Is it talking to a coach about this? Like, how do you really start to peel the layers back?
Well, first off, I want to acknowledge the fact that we all are in a imposter syndrome a little bit all the time, because that's what, unfortunately, society puts on us. And sometimes you have to have a happy face when you go someplace, or, and you're maybe not quite feeling it. So there's always that a slight imposter syndrome or slight mask that we kind of tend to wear for society at times. And it's because we're always a work in progress. And I continually say that because so many people have said to me, like what you just mentioned earlier, is like, oh, Patricia, you have it all. You've done all the work. And I'm like, no, I'm just a work in progress. I'm just continually doing things. And so I know now more about who I am, but I'm learning more and more every single day. And that's the key to it, is really taking the time and acknowledging who you are. And when I say that, you have to get off what I call the hamster wheel. You have to stop and pause and just kind of be with yourself, even if it's for 1 minute, 2 minutes, if you can handle it for 5 minutes. But the problem with most people is being on their own and in their own head and in their own space is very difficult. Even people who, like, you think runners are out there running. Well, they have headphones on, they're listening to music, they're distracted. They're not really being and finding out who they really are. So I hate the word meditation, because meditation has that feeling of like, oh, I'm going to be a monk. I'm going to be sitting here like this, and nobody can do
perception
that.
behind it.
Yeah. It's too hard for people and think, oh my God, I can't do that. I switch that. I like to flip the script a lot of times. And so instead of meditation, it's quietation. And it's a quietation where you just grab 2 minutes sometimes, and just be on your own. If you got kids, you got to run into the restroom and just intentionally take that 2 minutes of like, and just breathe and pause and like, okay, it's amazing how you start to feel. And pretty soon you start liking being, by yourself and finding out who you are. Now, what I will say is it's hard to acknowledge our negatives because people in general, they like to lie to themselves. I lied to myself for years. I was making lots of money, but I would spend lots of money and I'd never have any money because I was spending it all. And I kept lying to myself, like, oh, well, this is normal. Like, no. There was something underneath that I needed help with. And so, but it's not always easy to acknowledge that part, because when you say something negative about yourself and you start making a list of all the things that maybe you might be wrong or negative or something, it's hard. It's emotionally hard to say.
I feel like a lot of times it gets to this spot too, Patricia, where it almost a breaking point. Would you agree?
Yeah.
That like if you don't address something, it becomes something much bigger over time, and then it really needs a lot of addressing. And what you could have done is maintained it by the quiet time helps you keep it contained, or at least acknowledge it. So now you can kind of work with it over time, and it's like you're chipping away, opposed to trying to chip a mountain.
Absolutely. You want to take the time when you're feeling like crap, you might say, or you're feeling something, or maybe you got hurt by somebody, or whatever. We all have feelings. We all have emotions. We need to sit in those emotions and feelings sometimes and feel them, because too many people are pushing them into their baggage. And then that suitcase gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And they're, like trauma goes in there, and, maybe there was a rape and they're not, acknowledging it. They're not, or even just a divorce, like, okay, I'm moving on type of thing. And they're not acknowledging the feelings of what they felt, which could be negative and good and bad. And you need to acknowledge all of them so that they don't get into that suitcase and they build up and build up. And pretty soon, like mine did, it blew up because I was stuffing everything into the suitcase. So and then you become broken sometimes. And hopefully you don't go down that like I did. But if you don't acknowledge those feelings and really say, okay, wait a minute, why am I feeling this way? Why am I hurt? Why is it? And try to go into it and not play the victim, like it's because so-and-so did it to me. It's like, what part did I play? We all play a part in things, especially when there's two people, and there's usually two people when emotions are hurt, whether it's a friend or it's a divorce, whatever, or maybe a job thing, whatever. If you got rejected, why am I feeling rejected? Why, is it something in my past? Is it something that I need to address? Was I ignored when I was a little kid? If you go back, you start to find out, oh my God, I was bullied. That's right. And so that kind of went into myself, or I was told to shut up. So you kind of start not saying things. So you start losing your confidence. So it's usually the very, very small, minute things that just trigger you into what's happening with you today. So that's why it's important to take that time, and you won't figure it all out in 1 2-minute session. Okay. But it's baby steps. And I think that's another thing I like people to know is this is baby steps. Half a step forward is good. And if you take a half a step back, you know what? That's fine too. Acknowledge it and just say, okay, I'm going to be better tomorrow or next hour.
Yeah.
And that's how you do it, because we beat ourselves up so much. We don't give ourselves permission to be human.
Wow. That's really, really well said. I can relate to the kind of the quietation that you're talking about, where, meditation always feels like there's something else that's supposed to happen during it. And the quietation that you're talking about is allowing yourself to receive for a moment, kind of download the universe a little bit. And then also I feel like that's kind of the first minute for me, and I'll speak for myself. When I do get quiet, I start to get really aware of everything that's going on around me. All the things that I'm thinking about are usually what my next meetings are, who I'm meeting with, what the next interview is going to look like, all the stuff for the rest of the day. Then I start to go to the week. Then I start thinking about my daughter. When am I going to see her and all this stuff? And all this is going on. It's like a pinball machine going wild with all the sound effects included, right? And then usually like after minute 4 or 5 is when I can start to just appreciate you start to hear nature if you're outside.
Yes.
You start to hear, you start to almost hear the quietness, if that makes sense. People can relate to that feeling, right? Where you feel that space, which is really, really a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
And then it's in that moment, that magic I just want to share real quick is when the most creative ideas come to me. My best ideas come in that. And that's why I personally love to just grab a coffee and a book and get to the beach as much as I can. And that very rarely happens. And I live in Buffalo, so it only happens like 2 or 3 months out of the year that we can
Right.
even get to a beach that's not frozen over. So my point is, like, I know the magic in being quiet, but the thing is, for myself as an entrepreneur, the second I wake up, the second I look at my phone, it's basically game over until I go to sleep. So it has to happen before or it has to happen at the very end, unless it's intentional scheduled time, which is what you're talking about.
Yes.
And that's something personally I'm just reflecting on, that I do need to set intentionality to almost do nothing, at least 10 minutes a day, I think would be healthy for me. Because what I'm not allowing to happen when I'm not quiet is all that creativity that comes to me
Yes.
in those moments. I'm not even allowing it to flow. Yeah.
That's exactly right, because we have so much going on in our head, and society and social media and scrolling and everything else. Our brain needs to refuel. It needs to refuel in order to find that creativity, because it's there, but we have to be intentional about it. And you're exactly right. You have to intentionally take that 2 minutes. And I will say that, yes, when you first started, you're going to sit there for a minute and you're going to tap your fingers, or like, oh my God, I can't do this. Give yourself some compassion and say, wait a minute, give yourself some time here. Maybe take that first 1 or 2 minutes, but keep trying and doing it, because it will feel better and better. And pretty soon you will crave it, which is what a beautiful thing is when you can grab 10 minutes and just sit there and relax. Just like before I did the podcast, I intentionally took 2 to 3 minutes of quietness and breath, and just, I basically paused and I released a lot of anything that was happening in this morning, or when you're rushing to get started on the podcast, or whether you get your notes or whatever it might be. And you relax in that moment, where you actually also take breaths. And I'm not sure if you take breaths, but you can actually feel yourself relaxing when you actually take a big breath and then release it. And it really opens up your creativity, your life. And that's when everything flows. Here's a good example. I don't know about you, but when I'm in the shower, that's when I get the best ideas.
Amen to that. People laugh at me. All my family members or friends that have gone on vacation with me, they think I'm crazy. I take long showers. I literally take like a half-hour shower every day. And it's because I'm doing all these mental downloads, and that's the time I know that I don't have my phone. Okay. You shouldn't be showering with your phone. So I don't have it. And it's literally, I think about fun stuff, sports. I think about, things I'm going to do with my daughter, where I'm going to take her when I have her on the weekends. All kinds of stuff just flows. But it's also, there's intentionality. I have done some, I know we've said meditation, but also some words of affirmation. I've tried that in the shower. And then also I've done some manifestation too, where I'd say like a certain thing about something that's heavy on my heart that I really want to work on, some deep inner work. And I'll say certain things out loud. And in the shower, nobody can hear me. The shower's running and it's private. So I do think that is a special time that, some people take 4-second or 4-minute showers and they're just cleaning their body head to toe, rinse, and they're out. And to me, it's like, oh, you missed like 25 minutes of where nobody can get a hold of you.
Exactly. And if you really, I think more people do this than they admit to, honestly, because that shower is that place where you typically are alone. And that water flowing over you, it's a grounding in so many ways, especially when you allow that to happen. Sometimes I just stand there and let the water just flow over me. And then suddenly it's like, where's my pencil? I need to write this down because something just came to me. And I honestly think that's one of the reasons they started making, I think there's some waterproof Post-notes or something like that you could actually do in the shower. So, because we get these great ideas and then we step out and we step back into the world, hey, where are you? Come down for lunch or come down, and it's like the whole world again. So
I can't tell you how many times I've literally come out of the shower and I'm soaking wet, and I'll just say something into my messages like, "Hey, idea, this, that." It's an idea for
Yeah.
a business move. It's an idea. Sometimes it's song ideas. I do like to noodle around a little bit. I barely could play keyboard, but a little bit of guitar. But it's
Yeah.
also just like lyrical ideas that come to me. I am a drummer, so I can play music. I can play the drums, but I'm not able to like tell the guitar player, "Hey, we're going from C, D, E, F." It's
Yeah.
just I have to kind of hum it to them. So I record it in my little on my phone, and then the idea is not lost. But something I also want to talk about that's, we talked a lot about creativity, this whole
Mhm.
idea of getting quiet breeds
Yeah.
creativity. But I want to also talk back, directly to the person who's hurting right now in different ways, and the quiet time for them is to unlock some empowerment for themselves. Because if you're not really getting control of that time with yourself, you feel like you're always reactionary to somebody, and we want to be able to give them the power again to be themselves, start to
Right.
love and give grace to themselves. And I feel like that's a good time to do it. And then once you do realize, you said this earlier, like it's not the world is doing this to me and I'm a victim. Once you do flip that mindset, I feel like that is the superpower to then allow you to empower yourself. Because if you take responsibility, then if the problem is here and you need to correct it here, you're the one who can turn it.
Yeah.
You're the one who can change it,
Yes.
opposed to like hoping that somebody else does it for you. So I know that was a lot, but that's what I'm thinking about with this whole reflection on the
Yeah.
importance of quiet time and owning whatever it is that's holding you back.
Well, and here's the thing, when you own it, you can control it.
Mhm.
It's one of those things when you start saying, okay, I did that. For instance, just for example, when I was in debt, like $140,000, I mean, I wasn't opening up my, the bills. I was like, putting the head in the sand, right, and hoping it'll go away. What that usually never happens until you acknowledge something. And
Yeah.
I literally had to say, okay, open up the bills and then look at them and take control. What can you do to fix this, one step at a time? And that's how you have
Mhm.
to approach it. That's where that control, when you can take back your own control, that's when your confidence and your empowerment will start to build. Because there's something about being in control. And I don't mean the control like an ego or this and that.
Right.
I'm talking about just in control of your own life. And when
Like,
you
in control of your car. Like, you would never say that it's bad to be in control of your car.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
and it's that. Well, it's like I love being in my car because that's where I feel very controlled. I can control everything in most cases, but it's a matter of feeling in control. And so many people feel out of control, and one of the reasons is because they are so overwhelmed by so many things that are going on in their head and their brain and the bills and the kids and the this. Where you, if you do step back, and I know we've talked about this, and I'm going to continually talk about it, when you step back and stop and pause and you do that quietness, that's when your creativity, that's when your control, that's when you can say, wait a minute, I need to say no to some certain people. And it's taking that control back, which will build your confidence little by little, and celebrating yourself for actually the idea of even intentionally saying, I'm going to take control of my life. Let's celebrate that,
Mhm.
because you're intentionally saying, I'm going to do this. Because when you celebrate yourself, that also gives you and makes you feel confident. It's the little teeny eeny things that you do. Like, for instance, for example, for your listeners, like creating a list every day and actually checking it off. When you get done at the end of the day and you checked out, say you checked the whole list off, celebrate that,
Mhm.
because you just did something that actually boosts your confidence. It's when you're all
It's
over the
so good.
place
Yeah.
that you feel out of control. But when you start to take
Mhm.
control of little things like that, your quiet time, your list, you're checking it off, you're going to start feeling more confident, more empowered, and you're like, wow, maybe if I step out and do one more thing, I can do that too. So it starts very small. I always say that the confidence and empowerment voice can be very, very small in there inside you, but it's there. We just have to listen to it and listen for it.
Oof. So good, Patricia. And I agree with you. Like I know for a fact that confidence is something that, it's the little micro wins over time that you stack. And I've heard Ed Milet, someone who I know you also have an affirmation for Ed Milet, right? And he's taught me things from afar through his podcast about building up confidence. through those little wins. And again, celebrating it, even if it's just, I said I'm going to have dinner at 5:00 tonight. I'm sitting down and it's 5 and I'm eating. That's a win.
That's a win.
Because you told yourself, you made a commitment to yourself. You said, I'm going to be here. I'm doing this podcast today with Patricia. Maybe you're not feeling well. Maybe there's another meeting that's right before it that you know it's going to go late, and you're like, commit that, like, I'm going to get this done no matter what it takes. Then you do it. You're building confidence with yourself because you're making these little statements to yourself. And it's not like I'm coaching you on this. You're the confidence igniter. I'm just kind of talking to our audience right now, how true it is that when you just tell yourself you're going to do something and you actually hold it, you're building trust with yourself. Just like a partner will tell you, hey, I'm after work, I'm coming right home. We'll have dinner together. And then they show up an hour and a half late. They broke the promise. But if they continue to make the promises and keep them, if you keep the promises that you make with yourself, you become a really trusted, you become in tune with yourself. And then the quiet time is even greater when you have it with yourself because now you're in alignment, right? There's so much more I want to talk about on that. And I know we're running a little bit short on time and we have to get to a break. We're going to give our sponsors. We have 2 sponsors that I like to give them their love. We're here with Patricia Love. We will be right back in 2 quick minutes.
Podcasting is a great way to engage with your audience and stay consistently relevant. The only problem is you don't have the time or desire to produce your own show. You simply want it done for you. And that's where Social Chameleon comes in. All you need to do is press record and upload the files. We'll handle the rest. From planning, production, post-production, distribution, and digital marketing, we have you covered. We realize that times are tough and funds are tight. And Social Chameleon believes in building supportive business relationships. By clicking on the link in this promo, we'll provide you 7 free podcasting tips to get started, as well as a free 30-minute online consultation. This is the perfect opportunity for entrepreneurs, keynote speakers, industry experts, influencers, and anybody who has a personal brand. With Social Chameleon, we help you build a brand that is out of this world. We're ready and waiting, so what are you waiting for? Click on the link to get started today. Hey guys, it's Mike. I'd like to give a proper shout out to Navigator Bookkeeping. Look, for a long time, I ran my business without really understanding the full financial picture. I used my gut and my bank account balance to make decisions, which led to some poor choices and constant stress over my business's finances. I knew something needed to change. At the beginning of 2021, I made a decision that helped pave a more clear path for my business. I started working with Navigator Bookkeeping. Since then, my bookkeeping has been handled for me. I now understand the full financial story of my business, making important financial decisions much easier now, and it helps me plan for where my business is going. I highly recommend giving Navigator Bookkeeping an opportunity to help your business. Check them out at navigatingyourbooks.com. Again, that's navigatingyourbooks.com. It's time to know the full financial story of your business.
All right, we are back in action with Patricia Love. And remember, you can connect with her on social media. I have that all clickable in the show notes, as well as her website, patricialove.com. Right before the break, we were talking about confidence. We're going to talk a little bit more about ConfidentU, her new app that just came out that I'm super excited about. Patricia, if you want to kind of put a nice bow on the conversation about how confidence is so important so we can then move forward into our greatness. It's like a foundational layer, right?
It is. And honestly, I believe confidence is freedom. When you can find your inner confidence, you are free to do so many things. You're free to set boundaries. You're free to make that phone call. You're free to loving yourself, because when you're confident, that means you also are starting to like who you are. And, and that's not easy with everything like piles on us all the time, and especially women and men these days for imaging and all that kind of stuff. We have to have a layer of confidence within us, because we're getting, I hate to say it, but we're getting shot down every time we walk out into public sometimes, because there's people that are critical and judgmental, and they're always going to be that way. There's always going to be people like that. And so I like to say, when I leave my boat, which I live on when I'm in Seattle, I like to put on my confidence bubble. And I actually literally put it on and zip it up and say, I'm not going to let any toxicity, it's all going to bounce off me today. And literally going into the world with that feeling and that confidence, it's a win-win. And, you continually get more and more confidence every single day if you start to work on it and you acknowledge it. And there's one thing I also want to mention too is, because you kind of touched on it, is accountability. When you're accountable to yourself, that's building confidence in yourself. And there's one other layer is to forgive yourself for thinking that you weren't confident. Forgive yourself for being human. Forgive yourself that, you're imperfectly perfect. And that's giving yourself permission to move forward.
Yeah, you're imperfectly perfect. Mic drop moment right there, Patricia. I love what you're throwing down. I could talk to you all day long. Seriously, I love that we become friends. We've got to know each other a little bit more, and stayed in touch since you were on the first time. And I could see you being on the show again and again, because every time you come, we kind of unpack a different part of the conversation. Today's topic is around confidence, which, as I mentioned, it's a foundational layer, and I really think that's important. And it also segues us right into ConfidentU, right? Or ConfidentU. So I want to learn about ConfidentU, the app. I haven't had a chance yet to look at it, check it out. Who is it for? And can you talk about, when you're designing it, what inspired you, to actually say, you know what, I'm going to have an app. It's not something where everybody's thinking about is having their own app. So who'd you design it for? And anyone who's listening right now, why should they download this app? What benefits can that bring them?
Absolutely. You know what? It's been in my head. It's like one of those shower moments. Okay. When I was broken, and that was about 12, 13 years ago, probably 2-3 weeks into my process. And of course I was learning and, just trying to figure myself out. But I said to myself, because at the time I could not find a coach to help me because I didn't have any money, right, to pay. I also, when you're in a very low time, you do not always want to reach out to your friends. You don't always want them to know what's going on. I know I didn't. I didn't want to share. I wasn't ready. And so many people are not ready to share. That doesn't mean they won't eventually, but, they're just in the process of taking a mask off and they're, finding out that maybe I need to change and do different things. And so I said to myself, when I am capable, when I feel solid, when I feel, I feel like I'm in a really good place again, I want to create something that I can give back to women who are feeling that lack of confidence, that lack of self-worth, that lack of community. I find a safe place that they can go and chat and talk. And that's why I did it. So that it's my mission. So I've been very excited to do it. It's taken me a little while to do it, like anything does, right? I just launched it, but it really is for women and some men. I mean, I have a tendency to work with more women, but probably women in their 35 to 50 years of age. It kind of seems to be an area, a range of age that the confidence level has been beaten down a little bit and they kind of need to get back. Maybe there's a divorce, maybe they become single and, they don't have thousands of dollars to spend on coaching because coaching can be very expensive. So I wanted to find an affordable way for women to be coached. And I'm excited about it as you asked me about it. I'm going to have on this ConfidentU. There's live Zooms, there's audios, there's podcasts with renowned coaches. There's community. There's going to be quietations. There'll also be drawings and all kinds of quizzes and all kinds of fun things. And I was actually trying to just think of something new because I'm always trying to add more value, is that I'm trying to put together a confidence scavenger hunt, which I think would be just really fun because it's
something that the community can actually partake in, right?
Exactly. So it's all about community. And the last thing I'm very excited about is there is a free part you can download to the app ConfidentU. And then if you want to upgrade, you can, a monthly membership. But just so you know that part of that monthly membership goes back into the community. And when I say that, that means like if somebody steps up and says, you know what, I'm not going to be able to keep my lights on this month for $113. Well, then I want to have a community cash that I can help those people. Or maybe they want to help start a business. So the whole idea is to grow this bigger and bigger so that we can help the women in that community keep on going and help build that extra confidence in one step at a time. And that's what's important. And I'm going to be in there a lot. When I say lot, I like being involved in that. In fact, this is pretty much all of what I want to do is be involved and help women live it. So it's not just a bunch of modules.
I love that. Mostly what I love about it is that, you have all this information that you've lived through it, you've been through it, you've coached people through it. And it's like, and I have an appreciation for, the keynote speech or the webinar and all this stuff where you can monetize it in different ways, your story, getting on podcasts, getting the word out. But now you're an action taker. You're actually putting your money where your mouth is, right? So you're coming out and saying, I'm building a community, and it's not just a Facebook group. Those are cool too, and they can help out. But this is a place where like you control it, right? You have total control over it. We talked about that. And now you can do different things. You can do the scavenger hunt. You can have chat rooms. You can have multiple things going on at once. You have kind of mini communities within the big community. And now you're also talking about the give back. I think that's amazing.
Yeah.
I can tell that you're living.
I call it confidence.
I love it. Confidence.
I'm always basically my words.
The cosmos of the confidence you. That's a tongue twister. I know I have you for like 5 more minutes. There's something really interesting. We talked about like 2 or 3 times already. You're broken. Was it 57 years old? So that wasn't too long ago.
Oh, yeah.
And that was what, last year, right? No,
right. Yeah, right.
Just kidding. Just kidding. Winning some brownie points here. But truthfully, I heard you share this story about you literally had to start. You identified that you had these. I didn't know it was hundreds of thousands of dollars. Yeah. I think you maybe did share that. It's coming back to me now. What was it? $137,000.
$140,000. Yeah.
Unbelievable, right? So that right there can drown someone, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that could literally just the number being that high can just be like, okay, I give up, I tap out. But you decided to take action on it little by little, just like everything else we talked about today. It's baby steps. It's little action. Check mark. Hey, I paid 1 bill off. I paid 2 bills off. But you shared this story when you were on Carl's podcast that I recently obviously heard because I'm the producer on his show. And you shared the $30 grocery story. I'd love you to share that on my show because I can relate to that. And I feel our audience of young entrepreneurs, and we have entrepreneurs of all ages, but a lot of them are younger who are in our community. They can likely relate to having a budget, a really tight budget.
Yeah.
So share how you literally went to the grocery store and said, all I have is $30. And even if you had more, you said, I have $30 to work with. And you came out and spent what, $29.37 or something?
$29.63.
Yeah. So you remember it. You probably just felt it when you said the number, right? You felt that moment. Can you share that strategy and how it actually helped you turn it around?
Yeah. You know what? When I knew that was, one of those areas that I had to, grab onto and fix, because that was going to build my confidence also. But I also needed to eat. I also needed to put myself on a budget. But I also believe that whatever you make change in your life, you got to have some fun. So I flipped my own script and said to myself, like, okay, Patricia, we're going to make a game out of this, and so when we go to the grocery store, we're going to have $30 in our hand and I cannot spend any more than $30 because that's really all I had. Actually, I had $30 a week is what I had. And I had to do this for a week. Mm-hmm. And so I went in and I said, and you're going to have to try and eat as healthy as you can. Because I also was 30 pounds overweight. So I was also trying to feel better within too. So I created a game and I just went, it took me the first time quite a while to go through the grocery store because I had to look at things and see things and like what the cost was and the sets. And I didn't like going and buying bulk because I knew I could come back next week. But I did. I made a game out of it because I wanted it to be fun. And it's kind of like my ConfidentU when I want people to have fun when they're trying to change their lives because you know what it can be so hard, it can hurt your heart when you only have $30 or when you know that you can only do something. So it's like living in the lack of. So instead of living in lack of, I decided to live in abundance. And when I say that, I had $30 and I'm going to spend it correctly rather than saying, oh my God, I only have $30. How can I do this? It's a different way of looking at things. And I think I mentioned this before. One of my famous quotes from Wayne Dyer, which I live by this quote, is when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And if you dissect that quote, can work with many things in your life, especially when you're up against situations and problems, and just look at things from a different perspective. And it's amazing what you will learn, what you will do. And now I still do this, by the way. I still do that. I don't need to go into the grocery store and say, I only want to spend $30, but I do. And because of that, it keeps putting more money into my, account to help others or whatever I feel like want to do with it. But I like having that fun game because it's like I'm in control. I'm in control.
It's a great lesson that someone who uses a strategy in business and life in the grocery store when you're trying to get things together and it works, to not just think this is a temporary fix. It's a mindset shift.
Yeah.
The way the quote too changes the way you think about things. We talked about intentionality. I think of that right away too. Like you flip your mindset with intentionality there, and it's helping you. It's working. It's like, okay, why forget that and just go back to being kind of a crazy spender again? If you knew that what you applied here helped you, and then you can do that. You can apply it in so many different ways.
Because then I can.
And you taught yourself the confidence that I can get this done with $30. So then now, if you have 50 or 60, you're like even more confident, and you're way more appreciative to have $60 than someone who just has it laying around and throws it away easy. So and obviously you have turned that corner. That's a significant chunk of change, over $100,000 of debt. Now you're here smiling as I say it, because you're on the other side of it.
I'm on the other side.
And you've helped so many people through your message, which started from your mess. And I can totally relate to that story.
It's exactly what I'm trying to do. And just, it is mindset, that helps change lots of different things, because it's really interrupting those behaviors, which is what I wanted to do, and all different areas of my life. And when you do that and change those behaviors, because otherwise, if you keep doing the same behavior, what happens? You get the same result.
It's insanity. Yeah.
It's insanity. Exactly.
Yes. Yeah. This is such a good conversation. I'm so glad that we met. I don't remember how we originally met. I always like to give love to the person who connected us. I don't know if it was someone that connected us or something that we were doing together.
So.
Who knows?
I'd have to think about it, but I believe
it could have been on Clubhouse. I really don't know. It was hanging out somewhere. But I'll tell you what, when you hang around in the right areas, great people like Patricia come into your life because you're hanging out with those who can recommend and refer you to someone they know. Who's good for your show? You got to talk to Patricia. And I get that all the time. I've actually only prospected for my show like the first month in November 2019. Since then, I haven't prospected anything.
Because you're awesome.
The fruit, thank you. The fruit has come from just me being me. And that is, again, that magnetic quality of once you get real with yourself and you're, I like to think I'm not really wearing that many masks, but I know that have worn them. And a lot of times it's when you go into a situation you may be uncomfortable with, the first thing we do is we look for that next mask we can put on for the moment.
And that's okay. So, it's okay. It's part of life. It's part of the world, but you're acknowledging that you are wearing a mask. And that's the thing.
So talk a little bit about being, seen and unheard, right? Sure. And I know it's not an easy thing to talk about because it relates to your childhood. And anyone who watched our first interview together knows that, that wasn't always, a lot of people get to reflect back on their childhood and it brings them these happy heart is growing as we think about it. And you had some of those moments that you like to go back to. And there's a lot that you wish you can just edit and undo.
Yeah.
And delete and put it in a compartment and throw it in the middle of the ocean. So talk a little bit about the book, because I want people to read it. It is a fantastic read. And then I have kind of a follow-up question with you being an author as well. So take it from there.
Absolutely. Well, it's called Seen and Unheard, and un is in the parentheses, unheard. And it's basically a memoir of my life through storytelling. I guess that's the best way of saying, because I talk about instances in a story. And what has been so great about this, and I'll go into it in a second, but great about this, I've had so many people reach out, men and women, that have said, you know what? I get this. It's not, your story is very similar to mine or something different, but they're gaining something. So they're actually kind of going into themselves and learning more about themselves. So I think this book, with the workbook style, yet storytelling, has really made people feel more and actually created some thought-provoking thoughts in their own lives. What can I do differently? And that it's at any age you can change, because again, it was 13 years ago, which I was 57, I'm 70. And it was a time when I wrote it, I thought, well, I'm just going to write it because it's been on my to-do list, you might say, to write this book, right? And I just didn't realize how hard it was going to be to write it, because even though I've worked through I believe all of my triggers and all of my life things, having an alcoholic mom, a dad that was emotionally not there, being raped twice, divorces, finances, money, just always being that people pleaser, because I was basically out there looking for love and all the wrong places, you might say. And this book actually brought it all together. So this was a very emotional writing. And it's not that big of a book. I actually can have another book in me if I really want to do this. So it even goes deeper and further. I think the people who read it will get a lot out of it, because they're going to relate to a lot of the stories that I tell about being broke, or about situations and how I lost my confidence and how you have to work through things. And that, so when you say, I'd like to throw it away, there's a part of me that says, yeah, but then I really wouldn't be the person I am right this moment. And a lot of people
really
say
good.
that.
Thank you for correcting me on that, because it is true. It's like that scar tissue also is what has allowed us, and I do believe, and I've said it a million times on the show, is things happen for you, not to you.
Exactly.
And it's really hard to say that, especially when we're talking about rape.
Exactly.
But, we would never say, oh, I'm glad that happened to me. Absolutely not. But as time goes and as you continue to develop and to, build your character and your strength and your heart over time.
When you decide not to be a victim, because a lot of things things can happen to you. Like in my life, so many things happened to me, and it was so easy to play the part. It's his fault. It's their fault. Here's how I really relate to that, or work through that for anybody who's been a lot through emotional stuff. Is remember that people are people and they have their own story. And, even though I don't, people don't like to hear about the word rape, I always look back and say, you know what, I forgive this person because I do not know what his story was, and he could have been raped. I mean, we don't know. And as young children, we grow up and we learn what we live. We learn from our parents, our peers, and then we have to undo everything sometimes later in life when we're an adult, because as children, we don't know right or wrong. We're being taught through actions and how things, through the learning process of your parents or foster parents or whatever, sisters, brothers, whatever, and the schools. And that really molds you. And then, like
you're
I said,
a sponge.
you have
all of
yourself.
that soaked in.
Yeah. And then you compartmentalize, and then you wonder why. So like in my 20s, I wondered why it was all sex, rock and roll, drugs and rock and roll, because I needed to work through stuff, but I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready to work through this stuff. But it also changed me in so many ways. And every time I do something different, like when I moved onto my boat 4 years ago, I thought, oh, this will just be a fun thing. Well, I got to tell you, this has grounded me in a completely different way, in a different community. And I've learned and grew even more and more in tuned. And so it never ends. And so I don't know if I would have even moved on a boat if some of these things hadn't happened to me back in the, being in debt and all that kind of stuff. I don't know. But,
I just want to let the audience know she's not kidding. Like, she's not on like a little raft in the middle of the ocean right now. She is on a boat and you're docked in Seattle.
Yeah.
And you can, at any time, you could just say, hey, I'm going to go on the water today.
I can take off anytime. And I think that's always been part of me. I've always liked being able to go when I wanted to go. But it's, it's like living in a tiny house. And so you priorities change, life changes. And, a lot of my friends would think I'm crazy. They never could live in a tiny house. And I'm like, yeah, I'm enjoying it. So it's what's right for me. And that could change in another 2 years. Who knows what the next chapters are going to be, And so to me, it's like growing and continually learning and stepping outside of my comfort zone. That's what keeps me going, is I love being comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's where the work happens.
That's where the work
That's
happens.
when you roll up your sleeves.
That's where the work
roll
happens.
up your sleeves and you get to work.
Yeah.
You're an author, as we talked about with your book, and you said you have another book in you. So I do feel that can be something we all look forward to, because you can teach and learn. You learn a lot about yourself in doing that process.
Yes.
But there's so much that the world can learn from you through your story. And I know that you're willing to do it for that reason. So I look forward to see when the next book comes out. And I may have asked this to you the last time you were on the show, and the answer may have changed since then.
Maybe.
I forget if it's been I think it's been over a year now, possibly, since you were on. So talking about being an author, think of it this way. You're the author and protagonist in your own life story, right? And you get to write the ending, and God willing, you continue to live a long, prosperous life. Happy 70th birthday and many, many more. And you're looking back and you're reflecting on it, and you get to define your legacy. What would that be?
That's a good one. My legacy is I did everything I wanted to do. That's what my goal is, that I did everything I wanted to do. I don't want to have if only, or could I have, should I? I don't want to have those shoulda, coulda, wouldas. I want to do, and I did everything I wanted to do, and I left the world in a better place. That would be the real, whereas even if it just touched one person, I think that would be it.
So good. Yeah, you're doing it. I love when I ask that question to someone and I see they're doing all the things. They're backing it up, not just a cute little, hey, this is my vision. Visions are great too, but you've been taking action so that is true. I'm doing everything I wanted to do.
It's all about starting and action. I mean, I can have all the greatest ideas in the world, and that's why I always suggest to people, don't try to get everything so perfect. Don't try to make it, like design the website or get the business perfect or do everything. Just start, get going. You're going to be tweaking and shifting and changing as it goes anyway. Nothing is perfect. Life is so fast now with technology and everything. Everything changes. You can't keep up with everything. So you just focus and start. And that's the key. And then persevere. And I will leave this, one thing is, make sure that for persevering, so you keep persevering, is that you find your why. My why was laying on the floor drunk with 2 martinis at 57 years of age, overweight, in debt, and not knowing if I was going to have a roof over my head. My why I wrote out is I never wanted to go back to that place. And I wrote that why so deep that when I pull it out, because I do have it, I wrote it out, I pull it out, sometimes it still makes me cry, because I never want to go back. Because the thing, what happens to a lot of people is like weight loss or anything, they start off so well, right? And then they fall back, because they fall back into a comfort zone, even though it may be a negative comfort zone, even though you may have been abused, or you may, you fall back into finance problems type of thing. You've got to have a strong enough why. So when you look at that, it says, no way, I'm going to put one more step forward tomorrow. I'm going to do it again today. You've got to persevere with that why. So I'm going to, I'll leave people with that.
It's powerful.
Find your why and write it down and carry it with you.
This is so good. This is amazing. This is like a little master class from Patricia today. You're an amazing person. All you had to do is come on. I pressed record and you be you, and I knew we were going to have gold today. So this is absolutely amazing. We have fun. I love the glasses. If you guys are listening, you don't see Patricia. She's rocking these awesome red framed glasses, and I'm always doing the red and black. So we we're coordinated today.
Kind of match,
I'm rocking the Be Great, Be Grateful hat. I have it on the mugs, hats, T-shirts, the whole thing, which is at mikedupmerch.com. And all my, I don't make any money on it. It's all pushed forward to different charities that are helping people that are in need. So I really do that. It's fun. I like the merch, and it's for a good cause. So I just want to say thank you so much again for taking an hour of your time to be with our audience today.
My pleasure.
So many great things were learned from me first as your audience member, and then anyone tuning in is going to be able to really apply what you said and really start to see the changes happen from within. So this is fantastic. I really look forward to continuing to be your friend, and I know there's so many great connections and things that we'll work on and collaborate on in the near future. So Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me. I always have fun when I come on.
You know what to do. Be great and be grateful.
I'd like to give a huge shout out to everyone for tuning in, especially those who listen all the way to the end to hear this message. Seriously, I appreciate you, and my guests do as well. Giving a quick reminder to subscribe to this show. It's completely free and will allow you to receive notifications when new episodes are released. If you'd like to provide a tip as a gift, you can do so via patreon.com/mikedup. It's spelled MIKED up. Patreon.com/mikedup. You can give as little as $1 per month or as much as you'd like. Every dollar is greatly appreciated and completely unexpected. Appreciate your reviews and your messages coming in on social as well. Keep them coming. Your feedback is valuable and absolutely means the world to me. You can check out more episodes and content at mikeduppodcast.com. We're powered by Social Chameleon. You can also follow me on Instagram. That's where I'm the most active, and it's at Mike DiCioccio, MIKEDICIOCCIO. Thank you so much for your continued support. You guys know what to do. Be great and be grateful.